In this video, we delve deep into one of the most harrowing, yet often overlooked aspects of the Vietnam War, the underground battle fought by the tunnel rats. These brave soldiers, both American and Australian, ventured into the vast labyrinth of tunnels constructed by the Viet Cong, facing unimaginable dangers. Armed with only basic tools, their courage and resourcefulness led them to fight a hidden war beneath the dense jungles of Southeast Asia. The tunnel rats were tasked with infiltrating and destroying these underground strongholds, where they navigated deadly booby traps, venomous creatures, and enemy combatants in total darkness. We will also explore the remarkable ingenuity behind the Viet Cong's tunnel systems, the pivotal role of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and the devastating long-term effects of Agent Orange. Alongside the physical battles, we'll uncover how psychological warfare shaped the war's narrative, and how media coverage and public opinion ultimately influenced the course of the conflict. We'll dive into the anti-war movement that emerged in response to the war, and look at the plight of the Vietnamese boat people who fled after the war ended. Through this video, you'll gain a deeper understanding of the untold stories of the Vietnam War, from the brave tunnel rats to the lasting legacy the war left behind. Join us as we uncover the hidden history and the unsung heroes of the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, one of the most complex and devastating conflicts in modern history, was fought from 1965 to 1975. It involved a brutal clash between the communist forces of North Vietnam, led by the Viet Cong, and the anti-communist forces of South Vietnam, supported by the United States. While much of the war's history is known above the ground, there is an entirely hidden aspect of the conflict, fought beneath the dense jungles of Southeast Asia. This underground war was waged by a unique breed of soldiers known as the tunnel rats, who faced unimaginable dangers as they infiltrated and destroyed the labyrinth of tunnels dug by the Viet Cong. These tunnels were far more than just simple passageways. They were intricate underground networks used by the Viet Cong for storage, medical treatment, housing, and even military operations. The tunnels became a central element of the Viet Cong's guerrilla warfare strategy, allowing them to move undetected, launch surprise attacks, and evade capture. For the tunnel rats, whose sole mission was to find and destroy these tunnels, it was a perilous task that came with immense danger, psychological stress, and constant uncertainty. The tunnel rats were composed of soldiers from both American and Australian forces, specially trained for this subterranean war. Armed with little more than a flashlight, a pistol, and their immense courage, these soldiers descended into the darkness to face a labyrinth of tunnels filled with traps, venomous creatures, and enemy soldiers. One of the most famous tunnel rats was Sergeant Donald Sloat, whose unwavering commitment to his mission earned him a posthumous Medal of Honor. His bravery was symbolic of the sacrifices made by the tunnel rats throughout the war. They risked their lives not just to fight an enemy but to uncover the enemy's hidden world beneath the surface of the war zone. The tunnels were claustrophobic and suffocating, often measuring no more than 2 feet wide and 3 feet tall. The cramped conditions made it incredibly difficult to navigate, and these narrow tunnels were designed with several twists and turns to disorient and confuse intruders. The dangers inside these tunnels were not just confined to the soldiers that lurked there, but also the countless traps set by the Viet Cong. Booby traps, punji sticks, and venomous snakes were common obstacles, and with every step the tunnel rats knew they were risking their lives. Yet despite these unimaginable threats, the tunnel rats pressed on. They operated in the dark, sometimes alone, sometimes in small teams, crawling through miles of tunnels with little knowledge of what awaited them on the other side. The mission was clear: neutralize the Viet Cong AS underground stronghold and collect any intelligence that could aid in the broader war effort. They were integral to the success of the operation, as their work led to the discovery of hidden weapons caches, maps of Viet Cong supply routes, and key intelligence about enemy movements. The ingenuity of the Viet Cong in constructing their tunnel networks remains an astounding testament to their resourcefulness and determination. The most famous tunnel system, located near Saigon, was the Cu Chi tunnels. These tunnels stretched over 150 miles, with multiple levels and chambers, making them one of the most complex underground systems ever built. They were used not only for hiding but also for storing weapons, conducting military operations, and even for treating wounded soldiers. The tunnels were crucial for the Viet Cong's survival, allowing them to evade aerial surveillance and ground patrols. The construction of these tunnels began in the 1940s when the Viet Minh, the communist revolutionary force led by Ho Chi Minh, used them to evade French colonial forces. As the war progressed and the United States became involved, the tunnels grew in complexity, becoming a major strategic asset for the Viet Cong. The tunnels were intentionally narrow, making them difficult for American soldiers to navigate. They were equipped with ventilation shafts for fresh air and hidden entrances that allowed the Viet Cong to move freely, launch surprise attacks, and retreat before the Americans could respond. One of the most deadly features of the Viet Cong tunnels was the traps that were set to protect their underground world. Punji traps, which were pits filled with sharpened bamboo sticks, were common and often placed near tunnel entrances. These traps were designed to maim or kill intruders, making it dangerous for soldiers to enter the tunnels without knowing where the traps lay. Another common trap was the swing trap, where a large log was suspended in such a way that it could swing down to crush an unsuspecting soldier. These traps, along with the venomous snakes that were sometimes kept inside the tunnels, created a terrifying environment for anyone who dared to enter. While the tunnels played a crucial role in the Viet Cong's strategy, the Ho Chi Minh Trail was another vital element of their warfare. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was a network of roads, footpaths, and rivers that stretched from North Vietnam, through Laos and Cambodia, and into South Vietnam. This trail allowed the North Vietnamese to transport troops, weapons, and supplies to the Viet Cong in the south, keeping their forces supplied despite the constant threat of American bombing campaigns. The U.S. launched Operation Rolling Thunder, a massive bombing campaign, in an attempt to destroy the trail and cut off the flow of supplies. Despite this, the North Vietnamese showed incredible resilience. They used natural cover, such as the dense jungle canopy, to shield the trail from aerial surveillance, and when one section was bombed, they quickly repaired it or rerouted the convoys. The Ho Chi Minh Trail became a lifeline for the Viet Cong, enabling them to continue their fight against the superior American forces. The trail was also heavily guarded by North Vietnamese soldiers who had to endure extreme weather conditions and rugged terrain as they transported supplies. These convoys used a variety of transportation methods, from trucks to pack animals and even foot soldiers. The journey was grueling, with soldiers often facing torrential rains, sweltering heat, and the ever-present threat of malaria. The trail was a constant thorn in the side of the United States, and despite their best efforts, the trail remained operational, allowing the North Vietnamese to sustain their war effort. One of the most tragic and controversial aspects of the Vietnam War was the use of Agent Orange, a toxic herbicide employed by the U.S. military to destroy the dense jungle foliage that provided cover for the Viet Cong. Agent Orange, which contained the deadly chemical dioxin, was sprayed over vast areas of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia in an attempt to deprive the Viet Cong of their hiding places. The immediate effects of Agent Orange were catastrophic. Vast areas of jungle were destroyed, and once fertile agricultural lands were ruined. However, the long-term effects were even more devastating. Agent Orange caused widespread health problems, including birth defects, respiratory issues, cancer, and other illnesses. Both the Vietnamese population and American veterans who were exposed to the herbicide suffered from its deadly effects. Many U.S. veterans spent years fighting for recognition and compensation for the illnesses they developed after their exposure to Agent Orange. The legacy of Agent Orange continues to affect the region to this day. The chemical remains in the soil and water, poisoning the land and affecting new generations of Vietnamese people. Despite efforts by the United States and Vietnam to clean up the contaminated sites, the damage caused by Agent Orange is a grim reminder of the true cost of war. The Tet Offensive, launched in 1968, was one of the most significant events of the Vietnam War. On January 30th, the first day of the Lunar New Year, North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces launched a surprise attack on over 100 cities and towns across South Vietnam. The offensive, named after the Tet holiday, was a bold military campaign orchestrated by General Von Nguyen Giap. It was designed to demoralize American and South Vietnamese forces and to spark an uprising among the South Vietnamese population. The offensive's most shocking attacks occurred at the U.S. Embassy in Saigon and the city of Hue. In Saigon, the Viet Cong breached the embassy's perimeter, launching a fierce attack that lasted for hours. In Hue, a brutal battle raged for nearly a month before the city was recaptured by U.S. and South Vietnamese forces. The Tet Offensive shocked the American public, who had been led to believe that the war was nearly won. The images of the U.S. Embassy under siege and the fighting in the streets of Hue shattered the illusion of an imminent victory. Public support for the war began to erode, and the Tet Offensive marked a turning point in the war's narrative. The Vietnam War was not just a physical battle, but also a psychological one. Both the U.S. military and the Viet Cong used propaganda and terror tactics to sway public opinion and demoralize their enemies. The U.S. launched Operation Wandering Soul, using loudspeakers to broadcast eerie sounds of the wandering spirits of the dead, attempting to frighten Viet Cong soldiers. Meanwhile, the Viet Cong used terror to intimidate the South Vietnamese population and undermine the government. The psychological impact of the war was far-reaching, leaving lasting scars on soldiers and civilians alike. Many American veterans returned home with PTSD, haunted by the horrors they had witnessed in the tunnels and on the battlefield. The war's psychological toll was immense, affecting not just the soldiers but also the families who awaited their return. The role of the media in the Vietnam War was unprecedented. The war became the first televised conflict, and for the first time, the American public could see the brutal realities of war in their living rooms. The images of bombed cities, injured soldiers, and the devastation caused by the war shattered the myth of a quick and easy victory. The media's coverage of the Tet Offensive, the My Lai massacre, and the use of Agent Orange played a crucial role in shaping public opinion and turning the tide against the war. As the war dragged on, anti-war protests became more widespread, with college campuses becoming centers of dissent. Musicians like Bob Dylan and Joan Baez captured the spirit of the anti-war movement in their music, becoming icons of resistance. The media helped amplify the voices of dissent, putting pressure on the government to bring an end to the war. The Vietnam War sparked a massive anti-war movement across the United States. As the death toll rose and the war dragged on without a clear victory in sight, public opinion shifted. College students, civil rights activists, and ordinary citizens took to the streets to protest the war. The movement grew stronger with each passing year, culminating in massive protests and demonstrations in Washington, D.C. The music of the era, including protest songs and anthems of resistance, became the soundtrack of the movement. The anti-war movement put pressure on the U.S. government, and in 1969, President Richard Nixon began the policy of Vietnamization, which aimed to shift the burden of fighting to the South Vietnamese forces. By 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, leading to the withdrawal of American troops. However, the war did not end with the peace agreement, and the North Vietnamese forces ultimately captured Saigon in 1975, marking the end of the conflict. In the aftermath of the war, millions of Vietnamese people fled the country, risking everything to escape the oppressive regime of the communist government. These refugees, known as the Vietnamese boat people, set out across the dangerous seas in overcrowded and dilapidated boats. They faced perilous storms, attacks from pirates, and a lack of food and water. Despite the odds, many survived and found refuge in countries like the United States, Canada, and Australia. Their stories of survival and resilience serve as a testament to the human spirit, us determination to find freedom. As we conclude this journey into the hidden war beneath the jungles of Vietnam, we must take a moment to honor the bravery, sacrifice, and resilience of the tunnel rats and all those who fought in the shadows. Their stories, often overlooked in the broader narrative of the Vietnam War, remind us of the immense courage required to face the unknown and navigate danger at every turn. These soldiers descended into darkness, not just to fight the enemy, but to ensure the safety and future of those above ground. The Vietnam War left an indelible mark on both the soldiers who fought and the people who lived through its consequences. From the underground tunnels to the psychological toll of combat, the war shaped the lives of many, both in Vietnam and across the world. The tunnel rats were not just soldiers, they were symbols of perseverance, reminding us of the price of freedom and the cost of war. As we reflect on their courage and the lasting impact of the war, we must also remember the stories of the Vietnamese boat people who risked their lives to escape a war-torn nation and start anew in lands far from home. Their journey is a testament to human resilience and the desire for freedom, no matter the cost. In the end, the Vietnam War, with its complex legacies, teaches us important lessons about the consequences of conflict, the power of resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who face the most unimaginable challenges. Let us never forget the sacrifices made by the men and women who fought in this war, and let us carry their stories with us as a reminder of the importance of peace, understanding, and compassion. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the hidden history of the Vietnam War. We hope it has deepened your understanding of this critical chapter in history and honored the unsung heroes who fought beneath the surface. Until next time, take care and keep remembering the past to guide us toward a more peaceful future.